I I myself, and I've worked with enough studio owners to know that timetabling is just one of those jobs that hangs over you. It's something that you get done. So unless you're here for the first time and you're starting your studio, you've actually done it before. We always do get it done, but it just comes at a cost. And so the cost for you might be the stress, it might be the late nights, it might be leaving it to the last minute. Also, the consequences of that is possibly losing new students because you don't get on top of it straight away. But I also appreciate how much it builds on us and it sits on our shoulders because we know we have to get it done. So I do appreciate that. But here's what I now know and believe to be true. Like your timetable is one of the most powerful tools in your studio. And it's not because of what goes where, but it really is because of what it unlocks. So when you're building a strategic timetable, why are we building it this way? It's going to give you a stronger team. It's going to give you higher retention and it's giving you space to scale. So, if that is the goal for you, this is what your timetable can give you. And I mean, that means your teachers are going to be committed. They are more likely to stay. They're more likely to be happy. Your students, they're going to they're going to stay. It's going to be easy for them to take up more classes. And then that means your business then grows. And I understand how layered that is because I've walked through it myself and I've walked many other studio owners through it. So I have seen what the shift can do. And for some people, we get so stuck with our tunnel vision on what we're looking at, we miss bits and common sense almost goes out the window. It's quite interesting. But I'm going to walk you through this process. I'm not even looking at this as a workshop. I'm just looking at this as a beginning for you for the better start to a year. So essentially, it's your pathways to scale. All right. So now, what can we expect from the next hour? So it's going to be a practical clarity. I'll be walking you through, as I said, step by step. You can take notes if you like. It's not just ideas, it will be a structure so that you can implement stuff straight away. Take what you learn, whether it's this afternoon, you sit down with a cup of coffee and just get it done, or whether you take it over the next couple of weeks, because the process might take you a few weeks, which is absolutely fine, of course. And also, I did mention that because you are here live, appreciate that. And you'll receive the custom GPT of the timetable optimizer for dance studios. And it really is just to help you, support you along the way. Now, I'm just saying it's not going to magically spit out a perfect timetable because I don't want you coming back at me. I'm saying it hasn't worked, but it's there to support you and just your thinking. So hopefully it's the next step. And then one day I'll get to the magical, perfect timetable to be spat out for you. All right. And also, if it's okay with you, I would just like to tell you a little bit about Dance Studio Scale the Mastermind, what it is. I'm working with a small group of established studio owners who want more space in their week. They want a clear plan for growth. They want systems that don't fall apart. And the reason I'm talking about it now is because September, this is going to be our last intake for 2025. And if this resonates with you, if the way I teach, you're sort of like, I think I'm ready for the next step of support, then I would love to have a conversation about you. There's no big pitch at the end. There's no pressure. I just want to give you the invitation and let you know what's out there if this might be the next step for you. Yeah, just opening it up for you. So what makes this mastermind different is, again, we're not just talking ideas, it's actual pathways for you to grow. I meet you where you're at with your studio because everyone's definition of success, everyone's needs and wants are different. And so it's very intimate. As I said, a very small but powerful group. And there are a few spots opened for the September intake, which will be the last one for the year. So I will share a little bit more detail at the end, but just, yeah, keep that in mind if that sounds like something you might be interested in. All right. We're sitting down. So picture this, you've got your timetable out, whether it's hard copy, whether it's in front of you, you're ready to sit down and do it. Before you even start moving things around, there are a few things we need to think about. And the first one is what is we're really trying to achieve with the timetable. So for most people, this is the list that I have. It might be the same for you. You might have a few other things. Essentially, we want to fill classes and we want to maximize enrollments. We want to avoid overtraining or exhausting your students. So for particularly our older students who are at the studio a lot, we want to secure your teachers with a schedule that they're happy to commit to. We want to make life easier for your families, so they are picking up as many classes as possible. We also would like to support siblings to enroll. So if we can make it as convenient as possible for a family, then we are winning. And you also want to honor your needs. So where is it that you want to be at the studio? Are you teaching? Do you have to teach? Do you want to teach? Do you have to sit at the desk? Do you want to sit at the desk? Like we have to sort of work out what it's going to look like for you. Maybe you have children of your own or you care for older people, like elderly, and you need to be places on certain days. So we need to cater for that when you start timetabling. And of course, it needs to support the profit of your business. You need to be making money. You work too hard to not be making money. So let's use the timetable as opportunities for growth. All right, so key things to consider before we start building. Now, the issue I always had with timetabling and when I was trying to build out this GPT, there are so many variables for everyone. So we've all got different considerations that we need to be making. So some of those are the space availability. So if you lease your own studios, then that's great because you know exactly how many spaces you have, you know the times you can be there, it's easy. But for those of us who are in community centres or are hiring a local church or using council buildings, which I did for years and years and years, so I think it's great if it works for you. But we do need to consider the availability and time constraints. And then I also appreciate with that there are some places that won't even release the timetable for the following year, giving you your availabilities. However, I've still found that I just put in my requests and then they generally worked out. So I do appreciate that is an issue for some people. I'd love you to consider what worked this year and what didn't. So have a look across the board, have a look at your numbers, pull your data. Are there classes that need to be split, whether they're too big in size, whether the age range is too great? Are there some that could combine, or should you remove some altogether? Or do you have new offers as well? You might want to fit in as well. Um, I want you to think about group progressions. So it can work obviously in two different ways. You can have groups of students who move together. So if they're going up a level, then they all progress up together. Or you may have individual students that you're pulling up. Maybe they're too old for that class now, so they're moving. Maybe they've advanced the skills that they are currently in. And the reason I say that, because if we can keep the groups together in the timetable, it's going to be better for our retention. And then if you can like get your groups to move up together, but keep them on the same day. So by changing the name of the group or moving the level up on the day that they're already coming, it's going to help because parents are already in the flow of coming to the studio on that day. Anyway, something to consider. Another thing is your teachers, like if you've got specialty teachers, if you've got preferences for teachers, having the conversation with them about what the following year looks like for them, you might have to consider that. Also, with your younger age students in your studio, consider where you put them. So I know after conversations, there's those children who are starting school for the first year, a lot of parents are pulling them because it's like they're too tired or I think actually the schools say to them, drop all extracurricular activities. And so I know, I actually remember when I took my kids through kindergarten and they said the same thing, you should stop all extracurricular. And I'm like, oh, okay. Um, but that's what the teachers are telling the parents. And so you're probably feeling that pushback as well. So how can we combat that? And there's a few programming things we can try as well. But the other thing is, can you put them earlier in the week so they're less tired? Have them earlier in the afternoon so they're basically coming home from school or going straight to the studio, dancing, and then they can fall apart at home as opposed to fall apart at the studio. Or maybe Saturdays work better for that particular age group. Looking at your local patterns. So again, the demographic that you're working, the area where your studio is. So for example, I have a studio, one of my business besties, I think she might be on the call. Her studio is based near the beach. And I remember having the conversation, and she was saying that families just don't come on the weekend because they're taking their kids to nippers or they want to be going to the beach. And so she could never fill her classes on a weekend. And so she didn't have classes on the weekend. She just made sure she filled her week. But then on the flip side of that, I have other studio owners who, if you're living or running their studio in an area where it's a high Asian population and Indian population, where their priority is through the week they're at school and studying, and so weekends is when they were doing their extracurricular. So this particular studio owner I'm thinking of, she runs Sunday classes because there's just a demand for it. And so you just have to know what your local patterns are to then obviously cater for that as well. And then everyone's favorite parking and foyer congestion. So I mean, if you haven't, are you a studio owner if you haven't experienced parking and foyer congestion? I don't know. But I know for myself, we had particularly our Saturdays were always really busy, and I would offset our timetable by 15 minutes. So the classes were starting 15 minutes and finishing 15 minutes different. So we could have one lot out, the next lot in. So the parking they could leave, the next lot could come in. So that was a lot of consideration, but the stress of the parking and the amount of people, it was worth it. And of course, your ideal work hours as well. So what's going to work for you? All right. So they're the things that you need to just consider before sitting down. And then we go into the 7 steps. All right. Are we ready? Oh, well, I'm not even going to try and find the comments. I saw a couple of comments come in. I'll check them out at the end. All right. So the 7 steps. The first thing is, there's almost 3 things in this. I want you to write out the levels and the ages of all the groups that you have. I then want you to, in another column, put down the maximum time of attention that you have with them. So this is obviously a little bit subjective, like what it is for you. I've done an example of where I would sit. So for our preschoolers, that 1.5 to 1 hour 45, that's sort of the max we could get from our preschoolers. Pre-juniors, like sort of just map out what you think is the maximum time you can get with that particular age group. And then for each level, you want to write out everything you have on offer for that particular level. Okay, so if you're working through this right now, so you've got your list out all the groups or your levels and put their ages roughly. And then you want to do the maximum time of attention and then everything that you offer for those levels. And so what we're going to do with these numbers is we're going to start using the maths of how many can we put together in order to not put the kids in a point where they have a complete breakdown at the studio. Because that's where sometimes I see studio owners are giving, like the classes are too long, and then the kids are losing interest and they start to hate dance, and then they don't come back. So we need to rejig that. And that actually takes us to step 2, which is considering the class duration and the structure. So The likes of our sort of under our probably 8 and under, most of our classes were only 30 minutes. But what that meant is I could run back to back 4 or 5 classes of 30 minutes. So they were there, we had stacked the classes, but they weren't burning out. And so look, you may already run 30-minute classes, you may run 45. It's a matter for yourself, but it is just another thing to consider because it does help with your flow. And then because it does give you the opportunity to stack those classes. And if you think jumping into the mind of the parent who's like, okay, well, I'm dropping the child off, 30 minutes is usually not worth their effort. So they'll say, oh, well, we may as well do the 2 and stay for the hour. But then the other thing that I found is like, okay, well, there's 4 classes in a row. That's 2 hours. Why don't you drop them? They then duck off to Woolies, go and do their shopping, and then they come back. So they can utilize that time a little bit better. Which then brings me to the next point is if it's possible, and I'll speak about it a little bit later, if it's possible to be running 2 classes of sibling ages at the same time. So if you are in a space with 2 studios, can you be running like your pre-juniors and your juniors where siblings could come to both classes? So again, think in the mind of the parent where it's like, well, I'm dropping one off. How convenient. I'll drop both off at the same time. And then I'll go to Woolies and then I'll come back. And now, if that's not the case, if you don't have 2 spaces, and for many years I didn't have 2 spaces, but what I would do is then just do them back to back. So I'd have, for example, the pre-juniors followed by the juniors. So they'd drop off the pre-junior child, but when they'd come and pick up, they'd drop off the older one. So they're making 3 trips instead of 4 to the studio. So we're just trying to think a little bit outside of the square of how we can make this an easy no-brainer for the parent as well. All right, let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so step 3. So this is where we need to look at the logistics. So I've covered this a little bit, but the availability of the rooms and the spaces that you have. It may be even that you have only one studio is set up with aqua equipment or aerial equipment. So you have to obviously make sure that you're timetabling with that in mind. But then on the other side of that, you've got teacher preferences. So is your acro teacher like the only acro teacher in your studio? So it has to be on a day where that particular teacher can come. Or is it your RAD teacher? Like it may be that that teacher can only come on a Thursday. So you just have to.
Yes, you'll want to turn on to Horn Street.
Someone's got their mic on. I don't know who it is.
Yeah, there's just a side street where there's a loading dock and stuff. So that's called Horn Street, just off Glen Huntley. You'll see it. Okay, I'll head down now. Thank you.
I don't know who it is. I don't know. That's okay. We're happy that you've got your direction, so that's good. Okay, now I'm up here. I'll have a quick look through these comments. Yeah, beautiful. Oh, Laura Parker. Thank you. All right, back to the screen share. Actually, while I'm in the comments, is there anything you want to put in at the moment? Any questions that you have so far? Oh, thanks, Claire. I should be able to mute all. I should, considering this is my second home, but that's okay. I do like to be able to hear you. Can everyone go on mute because it keeps glitching? Can everyone go on mute, please? Thanks. Maddie, I've got a lot of parents requesting preschool classes 5:30 throughout the week, which I think is too late for them. So if your parents are asking for 5:30 though, I think, yeah, that's interesting. And I wonder if it's because they can come home from school, have a bit of a break, have some food, and then go out. That's the most probably the time for your preschool. Yeah. And you've got to listen to your families. Seriously, like they're the ones who are going to be turning up. So you have preschool time at that works, so it works for you. People say 4 p.m. is too late a start. Is that for school age kids though, Claire? Like, so if they're going to school? Um, and working mums who finish at 5. Yeah, I know there's so many things, which is why you need to ask the question, because it's going to suit, again, the different demographics of the studio, wherever your studio is, just little ones in general. Yeah, well, the preschool ages have always worked in the mornings for me. I know I've spoken to a few people about trying that 2 o'clock time. So again, we're playing around their sleeps. So, if you're sort of thinking, okay, a child's going to nap generally at about 11 and generally about, we can generalize, but running those classes at 2 o'clock in the afternoon before the rush can sometimes work, or a parent can come do their preschool class, then do school pickup for the older siblings. So there's a few ways to play around with it. Daytime doesn't work in your area, Marguerite, because parents work. Yeah. So Saturdays are probably really busy for you and Sundays. Um, yeah, we had an interesting mix with my studio was so, and it both worked because our area covered sort of the hard, not hardworking, but the Asian Indian side of demographic that really wanted the weekends only, and then we had the others who just didn't want to commit to weekends, or they were doing other weekend sports, so through the week was better. Just got to ask the question. Sarah, do we do preschool nice and early on a Saturday morning? Yep, for a weekday. Looking to add a weekday for others. Okay. I always send out a parent feedback survey. Yeah, that is a really good way to ask the question, is ask for the survey. And if you're lucky, you'll get some answers. Sometimes I come back. But I absolutely am just an advocate for asking what they're looking for. And I'm happy to pivot around that because ultimately they're the ones who are making the decision. And I think they like the transparency of that as well. Like it just shows that you're listening, you're happy to listen to them as well. So, all right, let me go back to my screen. So we were up to here mapping out the logistics. So that's your next step. So after that, I want you now to have a look at your current timetable and where possible, don't change things up. So again, the first time you're doing this through, there might be some big changes, but then as you replicate this each year, there shouldn't be as many changes. But I know I would always go in every year and say, I don't even need to change much this year. And then I'd start looking at going, oh, I really need to change this, or I could move these kids here. So I do appreciate that as well. However, we want to maintain that the popular time slots that are working for the parents. So I remember we want retention is really high on our priority, particularly right now. So we're about to head into re-enrollment season or rollover season. We want this to be as seamless as possible for our parents. And if they're in the habit of coming to the studio on a Tuesday and a Thursday, if it's possible, can you keep their kids on those same days so that they're in the habit? So it's like, oh, yeah, okay, here, sign for next year. Okay, beautiful, no change. And then it just sort of happens. And then they don't even need to really rework their logistics. I know, again, this is not going to always be possible because you're eventually going to get to a point where, like for us, our seniors always danced on a Wednesday. So they eventually become seniors. So they're going to change days. But just where you can you take a level up but keep the kids on the same day? Just more things to consider. All right. So yeah, keeping that the same as possible and just tweaking it as you need. All right. Then we move on to step 5. Now, step 5 is we are building, this is where we put it all together. Now, this process for each of us on this call will look a little bit different. For me, it was always, I had a hard copy, I had it printed, I would print it in August, and I would just sit it next to me wherever I was. And throughout August, I would just think of something and draw, like, do arrows and crosses, like, okay, well, that could work, and put that teacher with that. And so I almost was doing this whole process over a span of about 3 or 4 weeks, and I would just let ideas flow. And so then when it came time to sit down, I had sort of done that sorting out work. You may, and so I could then pick up that timetable, and then I then would jump onto Canva and I was able to piece it all together for my first draft. You may be a post-it person and like to write it on different colored post-it notes so that you can maneuver things around, pop it on a whiteboard. There are some people that love doing it on the screen. It's easier for them to maneuver. Or the hard copy like whatever it looks like for you, you just do. And because this is the bit where we're moving those puzzle pieces around to just start to see what's going to map together. The other thing I would suggest with this is color coding. So if you can color code your levels visually, it's going to look and be a lot more easily read by, well, you at first glance, but your staff and then parents coming in, they can easily see. And so you can just say your child is 8, so she falls into our junior level. Our juniors are all yellow. So have a look at the timetable. All the yellow classes are her options. So it just makes it a little bit easier than just words and names. Because the other thing too, when we're building it, we completely understand it. Like it's really clear and easy for us to understand, but we want to make it as simple as possible for someone who doesn't have an understanding of how we built it or what it means. So I just find colors is a good way visually. All right, so that's number 5. Number 6 is to ask for a fresh eyes to look over it. For me, this was my studio manager. Again, I would sit over it, I would do the whole thing, and she would look at it and still find things. It's like, well, they're clashing there, or if we move this 15 minutes later, then these kids can have a break before they go into a bigger block. Like that tunnel vision that I spoke about earlier, that's a real thing when we're building out our timetable, particularly if we've been staring at it for a long time. Having someone look over it will help find any inefficiencies, any clashes, any better ways to do things. I even in the last couple of years would then also have a third person look over it, which was my daughter at the time. She was one of our senior teachers. So she had an understanding of, the kids and their levels and the teachers and the logistics of it all running. And so having even that third set of eyes look over it was incredible because then she was able to pull things out as well. And it's really helpful. Now, if you don't have a studio manager or you don't have a trusted teacher, maybe you've got a studio owner friend who'd be happy to glance over it. They have the understanding of, you know, things that are going to work and not. So it's still going to be better than just you if you don't have anyone who you can call on within your studio. And then finally, number 7 is where we've finalized and we prepare it to launch. So again, why we're doing this, we want to be the first. I'm going to say the first to market, but we want to be the first to be able to release it to anyone who is inquiring for 2024. We want 2024, no, 2026. We want to have that information for our current families. You probably are already getting emails and getting the questions about what does next year look like. You could even be getting fresh inquiries of parents who are wanting to get organized and plan out their year. It feels like it's getting earlier and earlier every year. And so my thought was always, well, if I've got the information first, they're more likely, and it works for them, they're more likely to sign up with me. And so this is why I started this process. This is why I do it in September every year, because once the timetable's done, I could put together our re-enrollment packs, which would go out at the beginning of term 4. And the timetable was included in that. I was able to update my website. So when people started searching for dance classes for 2026, my fresh timetable would come up for the new year. And of course, those inquiries from random people that were wanting some information. Can I just have some information about next year? We're looking at doing dance. Yep, here it all is. And here's how you sign up. And then, of course, you're putting together your prospectus, so all your information. So it's done. And we can't really do all of this without the timetable. We can, but the timetable is what brings it all together because people are going to commit with the timetable, obviously, to make sure that it works. All right, so let's do a quick recap. First thing is you want to write out your levels and the ages, then the maximum time of attention that that particular age group will have, and then the different styles and offers that you have for each of those levels. The next one is considering the class duration. So, how are you structuring 30-minute classes? Are they hour classes? What's the best way you can maximize the amount of classes to fit in within their attention span? Because we want to encourage people to enroll in as many classes as possible so that as they grow with the studio, they then start to do the bigger classes and the longer classes, but they're doing more. Have a look at the studio logistics, work out how many spaces you've got, the times you've got. If that is an issue for you, you need to know that you've got to be out by 6:30. So you need to make sure that you're timetabling with that in mind. Changing as little as possible. And building a visual draft. So putting that first draft together, however it's going to look for you, have other people look over it, and then finalize it and get ready to launch it to the world. All right, there are 7 steps. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to see if there's any questions before I keep going. So if you have any questions about that so far, just put them in here. Okay. What makes you anxious, Maddie? So that makes you anxious. Is that asking people what they think? She's writing. Okay, of those 7 steps, how are we feeling with that? Like, is it just the process of breaking it down takes away the overwhelm? Hopefully. Okay, I think Maddie's still absolutely excellent. Yeah, I mean, that's just honestly how I look at business in general. Like, if we, for all those big things, all those big tasks, um, it's breaking them down into smaller steps. Oh, so Maddie, start thinking about the process of doing the puzzle pieces when we have one room and a bit busting at the seams. Now struggling to find a bigger space. Well, that's a good problem to have. It's good that you're busting at the seams, but I appreciate it. It's now the next thing you need to consider is space. So, Claire, I'm considering sending out a questionnaire at the moment. Yeah. And it's changing. I think in the older days, it was pretty standard. Like people committed to one thing, like a child committed to growing up, I just danced. That's all I did. But now children are doing so many different things. We're just a thought with karate and soccer and netball and gymnastics and everything else. So I think it's sensible to ask the parents because their idea of what extracurricular looks like is changing. So not that we pander to our parents, but they are literally the ones signing up. So it has to be convenient for them. So it's worth asking the question. Okay, Sarah, that's a question. When creating the final timetable, what do you find best programs? So Canva for us now. So we used to do Excel spreadsheets, and then that was a Word doc. But then, yeah, Canva now is easy. So if you set up your cells so you can edit your cells, it's a lot easier. So not just cutting and pasting images, have it so you can update it is certainly better. And then you can change your colors and yeah, I can actually I've got a template actually for timetables. What I'll do is I'll attach that to the replay email, and so you can just open that up in Canva and you can sort of see the setup that I have. And I think there's like setup of a single studio, a studio with 2 spaces, and I think it goes up to 5 locations. So I'll send that out as well. Um, and I have always color coded and never thought of coding by levels and ages. Oh, no. It'd be so much easier for parents. Yep, great. Actually, what does anyone do before school classes? That's a good, interesting question. Um, What are some of the go-to questions you think are super valuable? Um, oh, Claire, yeah, I'd want to think about that. Well, let's think about the your parents. So what are they, you don't want to ask too many open-ended questions, but like what are they willing to commit to? What time, like a weekday or a weekday or a weekend? I differentiate. Then if it's a weekday, a morning, afternoon, or evening. So then I'd probably break down the times that way. Um, would they prefer to come for, a short amount of time or stack classes for a longer amount of time in one sitting or come several times through the week? Like that could be a question you could ask as well. If I think of any others, I will let you know. Thinking about before school classes for our seniors next year. That's a really interesting thought process, Fiona, because schools do that. Schools run their classes early as well. And for a lot of people, they're not going to have other things clashing. So that's, yeah, interesting. We've introduced before school classes to our senior ballet exam classes. Nice. We offer private lessons before school. Okay, so interesting. It's definitely, I love that thinking because it really is thinking outside of everything that we've ever known. Um, yeah, good. All right, I'm going back to share my screen. Keep those questions. I'll ask again at the end for more questions if you have anything coming up. Right now, I just want to, if it's okay with you, talk a little bit more about the mastermind and the possibility of working. If if you look at, sorry, just letting more people in. What you're likely to have realized from working through these steps is when you're given the steps in the thinking process, is when you're shown that simple and strategic way, this is how we get things done faster and easier and with more confidence. So, why is it that we're not doing more of this for those bigger tasks in the studio? The costuming, the re-enrollment, the managing of the staff. So, when I'm asking people, it's okay, is it like time? Time is a huge one. Um, Resources is another big one. Overwhelm, just too much to do. Like these are sort of the things that are holding you back. And it's not you, it's just the way that we've been doing things for so many years. And this is like such a fresh way of thinking. More isn't the answer, simplifying is the answer. So the less we do, the more successful we will be. And then essentially the more enrollments we have and the more money we're making. So we're in this and we're consumed, right? We've got so much coming at us all the time with social media and trying to keep up with the other studio. And you're seeing so much of success of these studios online. And so our natural instinct is to, oh, well, we need to add this program or we need to be doing this. But I truly believe the opposite is the answer, and it's simplifying. It's that we need more structure and not the stress, because as creatives, like most of us sitting here, we are a mix of creative and business, but creative will generally come first, business comes second. So we have to simplify that program. And like for example, like the idea of a structure. So I am a trained fitness instructor. I was a PT instructor and ran fitness group fitness classes. But right now I'm using an app to do training because it was something that I needed structure with. I just want someone to tell me, right, this is what you're doing Monday, this is what you're doing Tuesday. And so I literally just follow an app. And this is something that I know what to do, but I just wanted someone to tell me. So I didn't have to do the thinking. The structure was a lot more simplified. And so when you're looking at this, now the question is what then becomes possible? So once we start to simplify, once we start getting that structure, this is the reality of it. So we stop reacting to problems so much so that we can spend our time building. We stop getting stuck in survival mode because we've got a plan and we've got energy to continue growing. That creative burnout, this is a real one for me. I this is a bit of a confession. I didn't actually think burnout was a thing. I just thought it was a bit of a fancy word. This was pre-COVID. This was quite a few years ago, but until it actually happened to me. And then I'm like, oh my goodness, like it was a real eye opener for me that this burnout is real. And it again changed the way that I did things. That was probably a big catalyst to why I changed the way I was doing things. And it really is just because our brain is overloaded all the time, and decision fatigue, like that's real as well. Probably seeing profit is a big one. A lot of people don't like to admit it out loud, but you should be making money. You deserve to be making money because you are working so hard. We use tools like the timetable to make that part of seeing this profit within the business. Your parents start respecting your time and boundaries. I just got off a call with one of the girls in our mastermind, and she's having a real tough time with her parents. But the reason she's having it is because she's taking a stand and she's putting her boundaries up. So slowly, the ones who don't like being told what to do are feeding themselves out. It's a process, but it's definitely something like she's feeling the change. But as I said to her, this time next year, her world's going to be completely different. And also, we want to encourage and make it easy for families to just re-enroll and stay. So, finding new families is a lot of work. It's something that we absolutely have to do. But if we can just really love on the ones that we have, and how can we retain them? How can we just make everything as easeful as possible for them? Then they're going to stay. Makes your job so much easier as well. And then you actually get to enjoy running the studio again. And you have that headspace to to think big for the following year. And it's, my most favorite line hearing people say is, I love being here again. I've fallen back in love with it, which is so good because you've put so much time and effort into building your studio. So they're the good things. All right. So that's what's possible. So timetabling is just the beginning. And when you bring that same clarity, the support, the decision making to everything else in your studio, that's where the change happens. And this is why I created the mastermind. And it was just to simply help you simplify, increase your enrollments and your profit. Because as I said, you're putting in the hard work anyway, so you should be reaping the rewards for it. Yeah, it's been fantastic. And I'm just sending you all the best vibes for term 4 and concerts and costuming and re-enrollment. We're nearly there. You guys are going to rock. All right, everyone. I'll chat with you all very, very soon. See you.